If you are out there now and you're like, I have no idea why I'm here. I have a job. I don't love it. I do the same thing day in, day out. And there's a level of discontent. What I would share is, what spaces do your soul come to life? What fills you up with joy? What is the thing that inspires you? What feels that it was a dopamine almost, where you just get a burst of energy when you're around it, when you think about it? What is the thing that moves you? Whatever that may be, I need you to do more of that. Because whatever that is, there is something purposeful in those experiences for you.
That was Lakeysha Hallmon on Psychologists Off the Clock. We are 5 experts in psychology here to bring you cutting-edge and science-based ideas to help you flourish in your relationships, work, and health.
I'm Dr. Debbie Sorensen, a clinical psychologist practicing in Mile High, Denver, Colorado, author of Act for Burnout and Act Daily Journal.
From America's Heartland, I'm Dr. Emily Edlin, a clinical psychologist based in Chicago, Illinois, and author of Autonomy Supportive Parenting.
Calling in from Vienna, Austria, I'm Michael Herold, ACT coach, confidence trainer, and the author of an upcoming book on developing your confidence and social skills.
From Boston, I'm Dr. Yael Schoenbrunn, faculty at Brown University and author of Work, Parent, Thrive, and an upcoming book about misunderstanding.
And from coastal New England, I'm Dr. Jill Stoddard, author of Be Mighty, The Big Book of ACT Metaphors, and Imposter No More.
We hope you take what you learn here to build a rich and meaningful life.
Thank you for listening to Psychologists Off the Clock.
Hey listeners, we're about to jump into my interview with Lakeysha Hallmon, but first just a quick reminder to stay tuned until the end where you can hear my co-host debrief with Debbie. And also a reminder that you can now listen to our podcast ad-free by becoming a supporter on Patreon. You can link to Patreon on our website or go to patreon.com/offtheclockpsych. And if Patreon isn't for you, but you want to help us out, you can do so by sharing this episode with someone you think might benefit from hearing what Lakeysha has to say, all of her wisdom about community and village-made values. Now, here's the show. Hey everybody, it's Jill here, and I am so excited to introduce you to my amazing guest today, Dr. Lakeysha Hallmon. Dr. Lakeysha Hallmon has transformed the lives of thousands of Black entrepreneurs across the world through her flagship brand, The Village Market, and sister organizations, The Village Retail, a storefront featuring premier Black-owned brands, and nonprofit Our Village United, which revitalizes small businesses by providing funding and technical services. Her love of community, paired with her mantra, support is a verb, I love that so much, inspires Black entrepreneurs everywhere and the communities who support them with intention. As an award-winning expert in education and business development, Hallmon's innovative village model has become highly sought after and has facilitated $8.3 million in sales to Black businesses. And she recently published her book called No One is Self-Made: Build Your Village to Flourish in Business and Life, which is what we are here to talk about today. So Lakeysha, welcome to Psychologists Off the Clock.
Jill, thank you. I've been so excited for our conversation. So I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
Well, this was such an interesting read. And I have to say, I'm like in awe of everything you've done and your purpose and your mission. And I'm really excited for you to share it with our audience. So let's jump in. The title is No One is Self-Made. So let's start there. When people describe you as self-made, you respond to them, no, you are not self-made, you are village-made. So talk to us a little bit about this myth of self-made and how it can actually be harmful versus this alternative that you propose of being village-made.
Yes, I can't tell you how many times, Jill, I've been called a self-made woman. I think it's one of those things in the entrepreneur world. If you reach a level of success, if you've done things well, I think people try to figure out how to tell you job well done. And especially when you travel the road less traveled. But every time I was called that, I felt uncomfortable. Words matter to me. Anything that we accept is something that we say is true. So titles, names, etc. And so I remember in an interview, I listened and I said, well, thank you, but I'm village made. Because to be village made, I am calling into the present moment all the people who've ever supported me, my team, the community that supports and advances my mission, those partners that have come on board, my family and my friends. And so being village made and divorcing titles such as self-made is really bringing into fruition what it means to be successful. To be successful, it takes all those people. They all have different functionings. They all have different purposes. But for you and I to be where we are today is because a lot of people have supported us. And the title of the book, No One is Self-Made, it was important for me to make sure that my title had something to say. And No One is Self-Made has a lot to say.
Yeah. And you get it wrong in this like Western culture that self-made is like some badge of honor or success. And not only is it not accurate, but it's sort of promoting a message that it's somehow better if we can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and do everything on our own. And I think it really does everyone a disservice. I mean, we are a communal species who needs each other to thrive and flourish.
Absolutely. And what you're talking about in this Western culture is individualism. These individualistic models that I write about in the book in chapter 1, I write about how these models and that mindset keeps us separated from each other. As well, all the unhealthy attributes of coming with feeling that you have to do it alone, that you would never ask for help. I spend time in the book delving into the byproduct of that mentality. But more than anything, we are communal. We are intrinsically tied to one another. And so to have a construct that says only one person can do this thing, or you must do it alone, pulling yourself up by the bootstrap, is counterproductive to the very essence of who we are as humans.
Yes, absolutely. And let's talk about like, what does the neuroscience and the evolutionary science tell us about being communal, which you talk about the push-pull between wanting to be self-made or feeling like we should want to be self-made, and what science actually tells us about the benefits of being communal.
Yes, it tells us, number one, that we're communal people. I even write about emergence in the book, and in this sense of thinking about how animals in nature, thinking about fish, how birds all decide that they're going to fly together, swim together on these beautiful journeys, and they are no different than us. And in that science also tells us that it makes us happier, makes us healthier, to be able to be in community, in the right community, in a healthy community together, because it is intrinsically how we're wired. And to go against that, we're almost forcing a hardwire to be something else. And so in chapter 1, I really delve into, number one, how we got here. You know, why is this such an American culture, American construct? And also the things that we need to do to get away from this very harmful mindset that keeps us separated and also keeps our communities at a standstill. To be able to grow and to be able, my mission is being able to advance communities. In order for us to advance communities, it takes the community. It takes a community mindset and model to do it.
And you work specifically with marginalized communities. So in what ways is having a village even more important for those communities?
Yes, you know, one of the reviews that I've gotten from the book, and of course I don't know this person, but one of the things that I read, the reviewer shared that she didn't understand, while everyone needs community, when you are in a marginalized community, when systemically there are barriers to your progress, barriers to your economic mobility, barriers to your access, barriers to opportunity, then there must be a community model, a collectivism to be able to overcome those things, to be able to achieve, to achieve some sense of prosperity, because that is the end goal, I believe, for all of us. But in marginalized communities, when all those things that I just named are systemically against you, then the strength is how well we can pull together. How well can we work side by side? I write about in the book being able to identify strengths and your roles in community. in order to be able to operate as a collective and to go against these barriers that I just named. It requires us to be a united front. And we have seen the fruits of that labor when we work together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really powerful. I mean, the stories of what you've done, what you've accomplished are just, I mean, I was like smiling the whole time that I was reading. And you can really tell like you have found your calling. This is your purpose. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about purpose. And I'm actually going to read the definition that you use in the book. So purpose is a calling that is sacred to you, but also bigger than you. It's often defined as the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. I think of purpose like being in a healthy relationship. It is and feels like love. It transforms you and fills you up. It's consistent, but it challenges you to evolve and expand the way that you think and opens you to new perspectives. And like I'm getting goosebumps and getting choked up just reading that. It's so beautiful and so poetic. So can you talk about like, why is this important and how are purpose and alignment specifically related to community or to building a village?
I talk about purpose a lot in the book, outside the book, because I believe that's why we're here. Yeah. And I don't believe we only have one purpose. I think we can have a multitude of purposes as we evolve and grow and really rise into our true being. But in community, why purpose is it has to be the anchor and the pillar in which we stand is because there has to be something that's driving the vehicle. Purpose is what moves us forward, that keeps us bound together. In thinking about purpose and its relationship with alignment, when I am in alignment, I am in my life's flow. When I'm in my life's flow, I am the daughter of my purpose. These things are all, they are tethered and tied and bound together. Alignment for me, I write about in the book about being in spaces in this gut feeling, it just feels right. All the things just begin to click. It's a domino effect. And I'm sure you've had these moments when it's nothing you did. You didn't have to force anything. You didn't have to contort yourself. It's like it's serendipitous that everything is working out and it's amazing. That is how you know it's alignment. And that alignment draws us to our purpose. But why purpose is a deeper work and a deeper experience? Because purpose also requires us to expand. And when we are expanding, it does not always feel good. It's not always pretty. It is rewarding in the end, but it's a fight against who we are and who we're meant to be. Purpose would not allow us to succumb to the smallness in who we are. Purpose requires us. I write about the oak tree in the book. Purpose requires us to be that oak tree. And so in our transformation and when we're growing and when we're evolving, when our relationships look different, when the environment looks different, when the rooms look different, purpose is what is seeding us into those moments. But I have to share that it does not always feel good, but it is love.
I think that is so important. And even alignment, that idea of like being in flow and feeling at an instinctual or gut level, like this is the right thing. Often that feeling does feel good and often it doesn't. Like I know when in fact, I'm like currently dealing with something related to this where everything inside of me is going, oh no, like I don't want to do this, but I'm like feeling called, like it's a purpose. And a lot of things have happened. It's been over several years that I'm going, oh my God, everything has aligned to bring me to this moment. Oh no, I don't know if I want to be in this moment, but shoot, I have to move forward because it feels like it's aligned and it's my purpose. And it doesn't feel good. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that about purpose, that it's this like a hallelujah moment where the sky's open and everything is clear and feels beautiful. And that's often not the case.
Because growing is hard sometimes.
Yes.
Your purpose requires us to grow. And purpose requires us to be elevated in our mindsets and our consciousness, because purpose need us to be the best version of ourselves we've ever been so the purpose can be fulfilled. And you're right. I think often when purpose is talked about, it often feel talked about in a way that it doesn't mean that purpose is going to challenge you. Every day is not good when you're in purpose. But what I do know about purpose, though, is that even though the day may not be good, who you are, you feel proud of.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. There's like integrity in there that
Yes.
you're, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So I think sometimes people feel a little overwhelmed by that word because it's thought of it like my entire life's purpose. And you were saying there's not necessarily just one purpose. There might be lots of different kinds of purposes. And I think the other kind of maybe misunderstanding about purpose is like, it's a thing that's just going to fall in my lap and be clear one day. So do you have ways that you recommend people explore and discover their purpose?
Yeah. And so I think purpose is something that's revealed. And I think purpose is revealed through our life assignments, where I write about in the book. I'll tell you a quick story that I wrote about in the book when I was teaching. My life assignment was to teach at that time in the Mississippi Delta in Marks, Mississippi, where my father is from. And it was so divine. I was meant to be there. I was 22 years old when I started teaching. And it literally charted the course of who I am today. But I had to say yes to that life assignment by being a 22-year-old teacher in the Mississippi Delta. It taught me how to love. It taught me how to be a professional. It taught me how to be responsible. It taught me to be a good steward of things. It taught me to give my absolute best every single day to those students that I taught. And because I was in a life assignment in that moment, and life assignments are not meant to expand over 20, 30 years maybe, but I look at life assignments are incremental. You go into something, you do the thing that you are meant to do, and then you journey on to the next thing. That's what my first 5 years were for me in teaching, and how that helped me discover my purpose for being in connection in community with people. I can't share enough how teaching opened my heart and expanded my worldview about relationships. So many years later, while I'm not in the classroom, I am in a classroom, life's classroom now, talking to entrepreneurs, talking to strategic partners, talking to community folk, just like I did my students in a different way. And so my opportunity to be an educator was a life assignment that was propelling me into my deeper purpose. So if you are out there now and you're like, I have no idea why I'm here. I have a job. I don't love it. I do the same thing day in, day out. And there is a level of discontent. What I would share is, what spaces do your soul come to life? What fills you up with joy? What is the thing that inspires you? What feels that it was a dopamine almost, where you just get a burst of energy when you're around it, when you think about it? What is the thing that moves you? Whatever that may be, I need you to do more of that. Because whatever that is, there is something purposeful in those experiences for you. For me, it was teaching early on. Now it's in having conversations like I'm having with you, Jill. These things fill my cup, and I know that every opportunity is purposeful. But I understand, I have a great deal of empathy and compassion for those who feel lost right now, who have no idea where to begin, where to start. And they will listen to this podcast and they say, well, that sounds good, but that doesn't look like my life. So I have a great deal of empathy, but what I would share is go into spaces and be around people where you feel that you come to life, because there is something beautiful, there is something needed for you there, and there's something that's going to help you understand, and your purpose will be revealed to you even more.
I love that so much. And it may be in places you least expected, because I think often people think of purpose connected to their career, but you might feel that sense of vitality and energy like on the pickleball court or when you're learning to play the flute. And your mind might say, well, that has nothing to do with my career. That can't be about purpose. But I think we have to expand the way that we view purpose and get really curious about, if these are the places where my soul is on fire, what is it about those spaces that is doing that? Is it because I'm being creative? Is it because I'm being active? Is it because I'm with others? Is it because I'm helping someone? And that those elements of, whatever's kind of responsible for that fire, like that's how you can start to get a little bit more clear.
100%. But you said something that I was like, let me put this in my brain. It's often in rooms that you just didn't expect. It's what happens when we show up, right? Yeah. Have you ever gone to an event that you really didn't want to go to? But when you showed up, when you get back in your car or in your Uber or in your Lyft, you say, wow, I was meant to go to that event tonight. I met this person. I met that person. And how you feel energetic and alive. So purpose also requires us to show up, to do things a little bit differently than what we've done. It requires us to leave our comfort zone. It requires us to be in relationship with other people. Purpose really compels us to stretch.
Yes, that is such a good point. Such a good point. And if you're just sitting there waiting for it to fall in your lap, it's not going to happen. It's active. It's not passive. Well, let's get back to the village and how no one is self-made. So you talk about 6 specific roles, and I think you actually even alluded to this earlier, but you talk about 6 specific roles that are ideally needed in any village. So can you talk a little bit about those?
Yes, this is one of my favorite chapters to write, by the way. I thoroughly enjoy writing about these roles. And this chapter 3, role called Building Your Village. This chapter was so important to me because I can't tell you how many times I hear people saying, yeah, I get this community thing, but I don't know where I fit. I wrote this chapter so people can know where they fit.
Them.
Yes, I wrote this chapter so people can know how to build a team. I wrote this chapter so people can be able to identify their own strengths, because I think we have to be paired and coupled with and partnered with where people that complement our strengths with our weaknesses. And so in the role called Build Your Village, I write about the futurists. That's the visionary. If it's a empty lot or an empty space, they already can see what the potential of it. Those are the futurists. Now, futurists sometimes stay in ideation too long. They're in the dream state sometimes too long. There must be some builders around those futurists. So I write about builders in the book. These are the people that roll their sleeves up and they get to work. Pair it with those builders, because we're never just one thing. Mm-hmm. There are moments when I'm the futurist. There are moments when I'm a builder. But there's also moments when I'm an enthusiast. That's the cheerleader. That is the person on your worst day. That's who you call. On your best day, that's who you call. But when the builder gets tired and the futurist can't fully see the vision, the enthusiast reminds them who they are, reminds them all the things they've ever done well, and tell them, you got this.
Keeps the wheels turning.
Yes, and keeps the heart on fire. Yeah. I love also writing about the observers. Observers are those quiet people that often sit in the back of the room. They don't have a lot to say, but they see everything. They're highly intuitive. They have strong discernment. And sometimes we do not want to hear what they have to say because they're not here to make us feel good. They're here to protect us and to make sure that we have considered everything before we say yes. Those observers are critical to every team, every community, every family. They are essential. And I'll stop there because I want people to read the book. But what is so why this chapter is so important with these particular roles? Because at the end of all the chapters, I have reflection questions. And this particular chapter will help you identify who you are and what your strengths are, and also the type of people that you need around you. And this particular chapter is essential to building your village, building your team, and also how to move things forward.
So how do you recommend that people get started? Like, how do they go about building this team of 6, especially, in an individualistic culture, if people struggle to ask for help and think they are supposed to do this all by themselves? We had lived out in California for 25 years and moved back home to the East Coast because we have family here. And, there have been many times where we've really needed help with childcare. And I've had such a hard time asking. I mean, I've asked here and there and gotten lukewarm responses. So now we pay for it.
Yeah.
So it's like we didn't have a village out there and now we should have a village, but it still feels hard to access, if that makes sense.
That's a really good question. And I've been asked this a lot. We talked a minute ago about there are moments where we just have to show up to find your people, to really attract your people. We have to go where the people are. And I don't go where all the people are. I love books, so I find myself going to the bookstore. I love community talks, so I find myself looking at Eventbrite, going to community talks. I love political things, so I find myself going to political activations. And in those spaces, I always find people who are in like mind and like spirit, and I find myself attracting new people to my village. To attract these people, we have to get outside of our bubbles. We have to get outside of our square here. And we have to go out and we have to be communal. And one of my practices that I do before I go out and I'm doing something new, I always set my intentions. I intend to have a good time. I intend to meet people that I can be safe with, people that I can dream with, people that I can potentially build with. I intend to also offer up gratitude for the opportunity to be in these spaces. All of this is shifting my mindset, allowing me to be open and also being receptive to what I may bring in.
Gosh, it's funny you just said that. I feel like you read my mind because I was thinking, if this were me, I would be singing, I intend to be open and receptive. Yes. And then you said the words right when they were in my brain, which is ironic because that's kind of open and receptive, but really to be open and receptive and to pay attention, to look at what I can offer in this space and be open and receptive to what other people may have to offer me so that we can form a village together.
Yes. And one thing that I would add, I write about that we have to be, mindful that we're not looking at relationships as 100% transactional. What we want to bring into our lives are authentic relationships. And there are times where it's strictly business. You're hired to do a thing or someone hires you to do a thing. But if we're talking about building our community, being in relationship with people, then it's less about being transactional and more about bringing in the authenticity of who we are so we can sustain healthy relationships. And I also, I write about in a book that there are moments when you don't have much to give and you have to be clear that there's not a lot that you can give other than your presence, other than your good heart. But when the time comes when you have more to give to a relationship, we have to remember to give. We have to remember to be available because things are not always balanced in a sense that because someone was able to give to you, then you can give them the same thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I really feel that, we moved to an entirely new place about 2.5 years ago. And so I've been doing a lot of active, quote unquote, networking. Yeah. And what I've realized is where I feel energy and those nights that you mentioned where you go home and you're like, oh, I was meant to be in that space. It's the times where it really is just about showing up as my genuine self and trying to connect with other human beings as their genuine selves. And I'm not even thinking about what do you do and what do I do and what can we do for each other? But it's really just how can I just connect with you on a human level and trusting that the rest will sort of happen with the right people at the right time and not the letting it fall in your lap, but not forcing a transaction, basically. I really feel that so much what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. The big word is trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's trust. You go do.
And that takes some patience too sometimes.
Patience. It takes patience. Yes.
Yeah. So you talk also in the book a lot about values and, people mean different things when they use the word values, but you talk about there being a difference between individual values and village-made values. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, those village-made values is what is good for the whole. Yeah. What is good for the whole? When we're working with any team in the community, in the village, then we have to decide what are those common values that we are anchored in, that we won't allow to be compromised. And in this decision making, do we get everything that we want? No.
Right.
But in those values, will our communities be better?
And does that sometimes require that you're sacrificing your own individual values?
So good question. I will tell you this, Jill. I do not sacrifice my values. And so I write about in the book when we're thinking about getting into partnership with people and you're trying to build these village-made values, there is a moment where you can be mission aligned with someone. We're on the same mission or on a similar mission. But when you sit with them, their values look a lot different than yours, though you're on a similar path. Now, I have high values with how people should be treated. I hold the line on that. And I won't move forward. It doesn't matter if the mission is similar, if our values are incongruent. Okay. And so when we're sitting at a table, when I'm meeting people, what I want to understand, what are the things that you care about, Jill? And then I get to share the things that I care about. Based on these two things that we care about, then we find a commonality on our value. Then this becomes the value in our partnership. And then I go down the list of things that I won't compromise on. You will go down the list of the things that you would not compromise. And we put that on our list of the things that we will not do. This is not aligned with our values. To be able to create these aligned values that are also true to you uniquely as an individual, it requires people sitting at a table, being willing to be patient, hearing each other out, and coming to some agreements on our values. But I think it's very clear, it has to be very clear that just because a person is on the same mission as you does not mean that you all have the same values.
Right. Would you be willing to share some of your main village values? You share them in the book, and I think they're beautiful, and it will give people, I think, a more concrete understanding of like, what do we mean when we're talking about village values?
Yes. Another one of my, listen, all the chapters in my book is my favorite, but the village-made values. My first one, I have share space with people who shine in areas you don't. All that means it is okay to be in proximity, to share space, to share the stage with someone who is stronger than you in something. You don't have to be intimidated. You don't have to be envious. We actually should welcome in these moments, and they should be celebrated. So if you are a speaker and you're on stage with a speaker who is seasoned, been doing this for 150 years, you should be excited to be in the space with someone who is so gifted. It only makes that moment greater, and it makes our community greater to see people standing side by side. So that's one. My second is ask for help and help others. This is a value of mine. Ask for help. We can't do it alone. We were not meant to do it alone. That was never real. But also be willing to help when the time comes. So you shouldn't always be on an asking end if you're never on the helping end. That is a value of mine.
Give and receive.
Yes, give and and receive. And the big one is be inclusive. And I write about in the book, I mean, truly inclusive. It can't be, I write about that to say something like Black Lives Matter, you have to care about all Black lives. You have to care about elders. You have to care about people who love differently than you. You have to care about people who may have come from different communities, maybe from different regions, be at a different socioeconomic status than you. That is what inclusivity means. It opens your heart space to see beyond the barriers of your own privilege.
I think that gives us a really good idea. I mean, the other ones I wrote down, you have are being open to feedback, staying open, that the doing matters. I mean, so that I just wanted people to have an idea of like, what exactly do you mean, when you're saying village made values? What I want to talk a little bit about is one that I think will resonate with people is you have a whole chapter on managing the hard stuff. So I'm curious what you would say to listeners. And I will admit that this is a slightly selfishly worded question because this is how I'm feeling right now, if I'm being honest. So what would you say to listeners like me who feel like they've been doing all the right things? They've climbed the mountain, they're knocking on the door, and they just can't get anyone to open it. Like, how do you've got all the credentials, you've got the experience, you should be able to go do the thing, and you just can't get the people in charge, to open that door for you. What do you recommend? Like, how do we persevere? How do we know like when to grit and when to quit?
Oh, great question. And a lot of what you just asked about, Jill, was some of the premises of me writing Managing the Hard Stuff. There was one day, I think I had 9 meetings that I wrote about in the book. And apparently this was the day of no. It was one of my hardest days as an entrepreneur because I felt that I had done all the necessary things. I've been a good steward. I've worked hard. I didn't cut corners. And why didn't 9 people tell me that my business concept wasn't good enough or wasn't viable? And it was hard to separate that my business concept wasn't good enough versus I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. And so I was fighting that tug of war of trying not to make it personal. It's not a reflection of me. This is just the business, but we're human beings. What I did that day when I sat in my car and leaned my head against my seat and tears rolled down from my eyes, I surrendered. I knew that I had given it all that I had possibly could. I knew that I dotted the I's and crossed the T's. And so what I had to do in that moment, the grit was there. But then I had to relinquish the grit, do a slow inhale, exhale, let the tears fall, and surrender it. I didn't give up. I didn't quit. I surrendered. And what happened after that? And it still moves me to this moment because now I have several stories like this. Within 2 weeks, within that moment, when I said, I'm just not going to schedule any more meetings right now, I surrender. I'm going to trust that the universe provides. I'm going to trust that my hard work really has made room and opportunity for me. And me saying that and believing that and surrendering that all over and all, I think within 2 weeks or so, a lot of those no's turned into yeses. And I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to take 9 more meetings. I didn't have to stress myself to the capacity that I was feeling burnt out. The timing started to align with my desires. And it is so hard to trust that we need the opportunities in who we desire to be. We need it to be aligned with the right time. So there are moments when we're willing things in and we want things to be exactly how we want them to be, but it's not the time for it.
Yeah, it's really moving. And the word trust came back to me, like trusting that it will work out. And one of the things we talk about it on the podcast, and I talk about it with clients, is all you can control is taking the steps that make your desired outcome more likely. But there are a lot of factors that we don't control that determine that outcome, and how important it is to hold that, because of that, to hold that outcome more lightly.
Yes, you said it. We can only control the controllables.
And I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about when you say you surrender. Like, I surrender to the parts I don't get to control. And I'm imagining it's similar for you. How do you not get furious when it feels like things aren't working because you're Black or because you're a woman. For me, where I get really stuck is when I see, mediocre white dudes selling best-selling books, and I read the book and it's shit. And I know that what I have put into the world is better. And it's really hard for me to not get caught up in the injustice of that. So do you have any advice for especially people in any kind of marginalized community that get so just feel like it's not fair? And when is it ever going to change,
Yeah. So listen, I'm okay with us being mad about it. We just can't stay mad. I'm okay with us talking to our girlfriends and our family, and we're letting them have it, telling them how we feel about all these things, where we're having our big feelings. We must have them. It is okay for us to be upset and to call a thing a thing. We just cannot allow it to take us off our path. We can't quit. We can't stop writing books. We can't stop producing podcasts. When our anger succumbs us from being able to do the things that we were meant to do, then it takes us out of alignment from our purpose. Yeah. Nothing should take us away from the things that make us come to life. Nothing. But I welcome us being upset, calling it for what it is. But then once our big feelings simmer some, we got to get back out there.
Keep
writing. We have to keep producing podcasts. We have to keep building community with each other.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one last question that I don't think will be too long. So let's end on what you call village verbs. Tell us about these.
Yes, I closed the book because I'm a very action-oriented type of entrepreneur and builder, community person. These village verbs, I want people, when they leave this book, to be able to do something. I wrote this book as a call to action. So in chapter 8, and I'm flipping to it now, my support is a verb chapter. The village verbs is the things that I believe can push the community forward. Show up and connect. We've talked about showing up a lot on this podcast, but not just showing up and being in a room. You have to connect. We have to talk to each other. We have to choose to see each other. I write about govern your words and listen intently. This meant a lot to me because on these social media spaces, I think we forget that these are humans behind the keyboard. And governing our words in community is saying, I won't say anything to you, just anything to you without being considerate to your humanity. Mm-hmm. Listen intently. It empowers us to be able to learn about another person's lived experience. And it helps us become better community folks. I also talk about teach it. When you learn, teach. It's almost when you get, give. Teach it is how we keep our communities viable and going. I write about pivoting in the book because I've had to pivot so many times. But the village verb, there are moments when you have to pivot. There are moments when things will not go the way that you plan, and you have to change course to get to the same direction. It's okay. Surrender. Have your plan B, have your plan C. Voting matters to me. I don't get into people's personal politics, but I do get in people's business about voting. I need you. Who you vote for is your business. But I do want every person on the sound of my voice to exercise their right to vote, not just in national elections, but local elections, statewide elections. Why these things matter? Because our votes, eventually, these people have the responsibility of creating policy. Policy determines how we live or how we don't live. It determines what we have access to or what we do not have access to. And so I am all in the business of telling people to vote. And then I am big on support as a verb came because I was telling the Atlanta community when I first got started, like, hey, You have to vote with your dollars. Support is a verb. Buy local. Spend on local businesses. And so I'm always challenging people in community. We have to support small businesses. When you go to a coffee shop, listen, there are days that I go to Starbucks too. But if there is a local brewer, a local coffee shop in your community, I deploy you to go get your latte from them.
Absolutely. This resonated with me on it's sort of a choosing to not support with my dollars or my eyeballs or whatever you want to call it. But, I'm sure as an author, you understand there's like all this pressure to be on all the social media platforms, and you have to have a platform as an author. And I just finished reading Sarah Wynne Williams' book, Careless People, about Facebook. Holy cow, is this an explosive tell-all? And I had already given up all things meta. But if I had not before I read the book, I sure as heck would have after I read the book. And that was one of those things for me that I just feel like this is not a company that I can support with, not that I pay for it, but with my eyeballs or with them getting my advert. And I know me being off social media will affect that company not one iota, but it still felt important. It felt important as a value and as an ongoing practice that when I'm making choices in my daily life, that I'm doing so with support being a verb. Just like you're saying. Yeah.
And I think support as a verb is a loving call to action.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think that's a great place to end. Lakeysha, this was so great. I could talk to you all day. Where can listeners find you if they want to learn more about the incredible work you're doing? They want to find your book. What's the best way for them to do that?
Right. You can purchase No One is Self-Made from all major retailers. You go to my website, nooneiselfmade.com. I have all the retailers there, so you can shop directly from there. And it's nooneiselfmade.com, no www. If you want to hang out with me on social, sometimes I spend some time on LinkedIn. It's Lakeysha Hallmon. On other social media platforms, it's Dr. Key Hallman. So I hope you all hang out with me. Jill, thank you.
Yes, thank you. You're amazing. And I will put all of that information in our show notes, and I will find you on social media if I haven't already. We might already be connected on LinkedIn. That is the one place I still am. But thank you so much.
All righty. Take good care. Thank you.
Well, I just wrapped up my beautiful conversation with Lakeysha Hallmon. Oh, gosh, did I adore her. She just made me feel so centered and grounded. I told her afterward, I know you're not a therapist, but I wish you could be my therapist. I was fangirling a little bit, but she was so lovely and so easy to connect to. And so Debbie's here with me to do some post-processing about this episode. So Debbie, what were your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, she's amazing. She's so wise. It just felt very calm and also inspirational to listen to her wisdom. And yeah, I mean, I had a lot of thoughts about this. I think starting with that idea of cultural narratives and how we're supposed to be self-made and independent and just how wrong that is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not. We are so interconnected. And I have this thing where I always read the acknowledgement sections of books. I don't know if other people do this. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I just read, I'm really curious about that. I want to know who helped this person. And sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're boring, and I just skim through. But I get a little bit of a sense of distrust when someone has a 2-sentence acknowledgement section when they thank their publisher and that's it. Because I'm like, no way. I mean,
come on, what about your family?
Right. Exactly. What about all your people along the way that taught you things? And I mean, maybe some wrote the book themselves independently, but I'm like, they are failing to acknowledge how interconnected we are and how many people are getting us to where we are.
Or if they really only had that many people help them, what a painful process that whole thing must have been, because it does take a village to get a book out into the world. And it's hard even with a great village. So if you don't have that, then that's probably a very torturous process.
That's right. And that actually is another thought I had, which is how sometimes I think because of this cultural narrative, we feel like we can't get help or we shouldn't ask for help. And I was actually thinking about how recently I was struggling with something I was writing for Substack. And Jill, you were like, do you want me to read it for you? And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think of asking for help.
Yeah.
You gave me such helpful feedback, but also we're like, yeah, this is actually pretty good. I was like, I would have saved myself a lot of agony.
But it does speak to how hard it is to ask for help that you didn't even think to do it. It wasn't that you were like, should I ask for help? No, I don't want to burden them.
It didn't even
occur to you.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think how often is that the case? We may feel like we're struggling with something and somebody could help us very easily. So I wrote an article for Psyche, an online magazine, about how to ask for help and about what gets in the way. And there's all kinds of fascinating research about this, and then how to ask for help. And so we can link to that in our show notes because you allude to that in this conversation. But I think there's a lot to unpack there, right? This idea that we should do everything ourselves and it's like a weakness if we ask for help when a lot of times people are happy to help us. And it creates this kind of mutual, like we're supporting and helping each other feeling.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, we are all so busy. And because we're doing so much on our own, it feels like there's nothing left to give. But I think that we should all be looking for ways to help others. And I know just reading Lakeysha's book and just having this conversation with her made me feel so motivated, inspired to offer help. I mean, when we stopped recording, I said to her, if there's anything I can do to support you in your mission, because I really believe in it, and I'm going to try to connect her with other podcasts so that she can get the word out on these other podcasts. And you write about this in your article too, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the benefits of giving help.
Yes.
I think it's even more beneficial when you give others help than it is to receive.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you do need to be setting boundaries when appropriate. Like, you're not going to give to the point of pathological altruism. But yeah, like there's all kinds of research about how good it feels to do things for other people. And I think sometimes when we don't allow people that opportunity, there's an opportunity there that's good for both sides of the equation.
Exactly. And creates more bonding and a greater sense of community. And so I hope that this conversation motivated our listeners both to be more open to asking for help and also finding their own village and offering themselves up to be part of someone's village, and recognizing it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to go be your CFO or I'm going to do something that requires 10 hours a week. It can be very small, little things that offer the same benefit.
Well, it's this idea she talks about with village values. I just love that. Like, not just my own personal values, but values that are good for the collective, that are good for my community and the world. I love that way of thinking.
Yep, totally agree.
And then there's one more line in the interview that I wrote down. It just really captured so much. I loved it. She asks about the spaces in which your soul comes to life. And I just
when she was talking about purpose, right?
Purpose, yes. Yeah. And like just paying attention to that. And I am taking a writing class right now. It's a memoir writing class. If you follow the podcast closely, you've heard me talk about this before, especially my conversation with Maureen Murdoch on memoir writing. And I'm taking this class right now, and I absolutely love it. Like, I'm reading memoirs, I'm reading other classmates' memoirs. There's so much vitality right now for me. I can't explain it. It makes no practical sense whatsoever. This is not a career move, or there's no financial benefit of it. In fact, I'm paying money to take this class. It's making my soul come alive.
And I love that, to think outside of the box. Like, purpose isn't just about what you're meant to do to make money and pay the bills. And this might turn into something else down the road. There's no way of knowing. But I think what Lakeysha would say is, if you follow your purpose, it'll make sense at some point. And maybe make sense is just your soul is on fire, and maybe it's something that turns into something down the road. But to not fight it because it doesn't make rational sense, or it doesn't fit into some path in some linear way, but to just follow that feeling of your soul on fire.
Yeah, it's like giving me a quality of life right now that matters. I love
it. I'm proud of you that you're doing that.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing this interview to us, because it really, it's just such a touching, beautiful conversation. I loved it.
Yeah, I know. I really want to stay in touch with her, and I hope I do. And I hope all of you got just as much out of this conversation as we did. Thank you for listening to Psychologists Off the Clock. You can now listen to our podcast ad-free by becoming a supporter on Patreon. You can link to Patreon on our website or go to patreon.com/offtheclocksite.
If you enjoy our podcast, you can help us out by leaving a review and sharing this episode with a friend or an enemy who would enjoy it.
You can get more psychology tips by subscribing to our fabulous newsletter on Substack. Or if you're still addicted to social media, find us on Instagram and LinkedIn.
We'd like to thank our rockstar production manager, Jadine Stout-Williams.
Now for the boring part. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not meant to be a substitute for mental health treatment. If you're looking for mental health treatment, please visit the resources page of our website, offtheclockpsych.com.